You need user feedback, but you hate talking to people? I have good news. You can use AI to get feedback on your startup idea. I'll show you how. All right, today I'm gonna walk you through how I get feedback on new ideas that I have. One word of caution, I think this is especially helpful for beginners because often when beginners go out and they ask people for feedback, they will be like, this is my idea. Isn't it great? So you put people under pressure to tell you that your idea is good, which most people will, but that's often not the truth. And this is kind of the whole point of the mom test. I have a separate video on this I'll link up below, and it's one of the biggest pitfalls for beginners that build products because we go down a 3 months road of building something because we got feedback. The feedback says it's amazing, but it actually is not interesting at all. It's just because we asked leading questions and we asked the wrong questions. So while you can get better at this, and I would recommend to still do user research with real people, what AI is good at is giving wisdom of the crowds, right? So we are good at getting feedback on our idea that is, won't call it generic, but it's good enough to start, right? And then ultimately, what I've learned from experience, the market will decide if your thing is worth building, worth paying for. And that is what you need to learn, and you need to be as fast as possible, right? And by talking to people, you will get some insights, but ultimately it is very hard, especially as a beginner, to get really to the core and the truth. And there's a lot of variables. And so what I've learned is just to throw things out there and then see how the market responds. But we can get some feedback first. Let me show you. All right, so we're gonna go through the whole process step by step. Bear with me. We're gonna even make up a startup. This obviously will be your idea. This is a custom Claude tool that I've built, but you can use GPT, you can use any other LLM tool for this. What we're doing now is we're just trying to find an idea. Let's be a bit esoteric. We'll try to combine my hobbies of reading and coffee in an app. Now we have a couple ideas. We can go build a coffee shop finder for readers, reading timer with coffee breaks, book and coffee pairing, coffee shops, book exchange, coffee shop loyalty, reading rewards. I'm not so sure that most cafes like people that read just because they occupy space and maybe don't consume enough, but I guess they don't get kicked out for using a laptop. All right, let's take the first one. This is just purely an example. I don't think I'm going to build this anytime soon, but maybe we'll stumble on something useful. Let's see. All right, so we have a core value proposition, perfect coffee shops for reading. There is actually a good store nearby that also sells books. It's a cafe. I read from there from time to time, so maybe we are onto something. I don't know. Noise level, okay. These are pretty good. I think good enough for now. And so now to the core piece. I essentially have a tool, and I will show you the system prompt real quick, that simulates personas, which are essentially people that you would be asking for feedback. And this is who ultimately will give us feedback, right? Essentially what I'm doing is I can say, give me 10 people, and maybe we'll just do this now. Give me 10 people of X. So you can say, give me 10 people that read 1 hour per day and let them feedback my idea. So I'll go in, it will simulate 10 people that are potential users of my app, and they will give me feedback both individually and then also a synthesized response, which lets us see patterns. And you can do more than 10, you can do 100 if you're worried that it's not enough, but this will do multiple things, right? So we get feedback. We also get some insights into potential personas because it says marketing manager, it says college professor. So these are the people that are reading 1 hour per day, and AI should be smart enough to estimate that just because it's just average stuff, right? Like it doesn't need to know for sure that that's the case, but it's very probable that these kind of people are in the range of that. Librarian, teacher, okay. So what kind of feedback do they give? They say reading habits, reads fiction for 1 to 2 hours each morning before work, often at coffee shops. Feedback, this would solve a real problem for me. I've wasted so much time walking into cafes only to find they're too loud and don't have comfortable seating. So essentially we get feedback and we get a theme. We said environmental factors are important. Crowd information is important. Table size, outlet, Wi-Fi. This maybe doesn't make much sense. Wi-Fi is always important, but it's like if you're reading, you don't necessarily need internet unless you're reading on your laptop, maybe. possible. What if I want to niche down and I want to say, okay, I'm only interested in building something specifically for people that read paper books, right? So if you wanted to niche down, what you could do is essentially do exactly that, right? Okay, I want to build this app specifically for users or readers that read paper books. Maybe that limits the filters, or let's not limit the filters. So, and now we're gonna niche down even more. We're gonna say, okay, I only want, I don't know, IT consultants, right? Focus on IT consultants and give me their feedback. Simulate 10 different. So now I'm saying, okay, I only want IT consultants because we've learned maybe that for IT consultants, this is very important and very interesting for whatever reason. And so now I'm going to say, hey, give me 10 IT consultants, not just anyone, because we don't want to be so broad. We want to be more specific, right? All right. So we have DevOps, cybersecurity solutions, database, front end, project manager. So now it's more specific, right? And now we can see, okay, for IT consultants, what are the driving factors, right? Like, for example, digital detox. That's pretty accurate. I mean, I'm not an IT consultant, but I build software. So essentially, when I read, I just want calm, quiet. I prefer paper books because I'm on my laptop all day, every day. So I don't want to necessarily be in the same medium. And I don't want to be on a screen. And I don't want to be distracted. Right? All right. The rest, interesting. So here it says some specifically seek pure Wi-Fi. So that's interesting. I don't know if that's good or if it makes sense, but I guess it's a kind of forced way of not using the internet because it's just too annoying. But yeah, I would see this more of it as an edge case. Now we can go in and we can ask the dreaded question that everybody always asks during customer interviews that doesn't make sense, but would they pay for this, right? That's always what everybody asks, like, would you pay for this? And then people are like, yes, $100. And then you ask them to give you their credit card and they never will. But that's why we're doing this, right? So we will figure out, let's see what AI says. I think it's probably not a reliable question to ask, but it's also at the same time interesting to compare what people will say versus what AI will say to see if we're more living in reality with AI than we are asking people. All right, so it says, for one-time purchase, the likelihood is high. For monthly subscription, moderate. Subscription fatigue being a barrier. Annual, higher chance of annual versus monthly. Freemium. All right, and then we say premium features, right? I still will take this with a grain of salt. It says, yes, many IT consultants would pay. I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest. So I guess questioning the payment piece is always important, I think. Maybe a better way here would be to offer boosting cafes in your app for a fee from the cafe, so monetizing that way. We can ask again, right? We can take this where we want. What are other business models rather than charging? So for example, we're in the wedding space and a lot of wedding apps are free, but they charge service providers to be listed in their directories or to be, featured, things like that. But almost none of them charge the user directly, which is always a bit of a pain in the ass for someone building tools. So maybe I wouldn't even go out and build an app, but now we're already committed, so we have to. All right, and here it says coffee shop partnership programs, featured or highlighted in the app, right? So very low hanging fruit, kind of what I just said. Affiliate marketing. So we could recommend books. We could recommend, getting a cut if someone comes through our app, goes to the cafe sells books, we make some money. Event hosting, white label, advertising. So yeah, a bunch of interesting ways to do it. Now we say what here is easy to do for me as solopreneur. Highest likelihood useful monetization is okay with. Lay it out in a table. All right, so now we're just getting a table on all these business models and or monetization ways, and we're scoring them based on how hard is it to achieve, right? Like let's say we want to advertise. Advertising means I need a shitload of users, right? Which means how do I get the users? That's usually the hardest part, right? So monetizing that way is possible. The user will like it because they don't pay, but it's hard to achieve for me. So is there anything that kind of strikes a balance, right? That's what we're trying to figure out. All right, so in the end, what it recommends to me is a one-time app purchase and affiliate links, primary, secondary monetization. And this is again kind of looping back to what I said in the beginning, where start simple and see if you can monetize that way and learn that way, right? Like not even a waiting list. Like a lot of times people are like, I'll just make a wait list and then you will see. But that isn't really validating anything other than that people like to read and they might, use something for free. But it's very low commitment. It's better than nothing, but it's still too low commitment. So I would always start with charging for something, and I would never ask a person if they're willing to pay. What you can ask instead is something like, how much money do you spend on books, or how often do you go to a cafe to read, and then how much money do you spend there, or whatever, like what kind of apps they're paying for, etc. Do they even pay for apps at all, right? A lot of people don't. And so there's proxy questions that will help us dig deeper, but will you pay for this is like a bad question. So never ask this. But yeah. So now we have feedback from users. We have a monetization model. Obviously, take this with a grain of salt. Optimize for something that's simple. Use your brain, right? Like use some common sense. If you don't think people will pay for something, I would always rather on the side of caution when it comes to paying for something, because most people hate paying. So I'd be more conservative on that end. But I guess the point was more to show you how you can get user feedback without actually talking to people to get your idea off the ground. All right. If any of this stuff sounded interesting to you, feel free to check out my other AI hack videos, just tools for founders to, get started on their idea and bring it to life, or any of my other content. And let me know in the comments if you've used something similar before, or what idea you're working on, what you're cranking away on. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.